I'm taking the next CEO for myself. Here, pick up the $1,000 alimony.
Susanna, my best friend, sneers with a twisted smile. She mocked me from the bottom of her heart. Right beside her, my husband Max was grinning smugly. These two had been betraying me through their affair for who knows how long. Susanna probably stole Max from me just because he's the son of a big company CEO. She's always loved money, but I never imagined she'd go as far as to steal her best friend's husband. I've lost both my husband and my best friend. Was I so blind in my judgment? I don't think I could have handled this situation on my own. But I have a strong ally. I close my eyes for a moment and take a deep breath. Then, I open them, glare directly at my two enemies in front of me, and raise the flag of counterattack. My name is Emily, a 45-year-old working housewife. I juggle a job at a company and care for my 8-year-old daughter while handling the household chores. There are plenty of women like me. But I'm a bit different from other people.
Good morning, Emily. I'm counting on you today.
Good morning, Dave. Let's do our best today. My workplace is a large company with annual sales of $500 million, run by my father-in-law, Dave. He's the CEO of a medical equipment manufacturer, and my husband Max is his only son. I met Max in college and started dating him after his confession.
I lost my mom early on, and my dad raised me alone. But he was always busy with work, so I didn't get much attention from him. That's why I like caring women like you, Emily.
He told me this a little after we started dating. It was well known among our college peers that Max was the son of a big company CEO. I never imagined I'd be able to date him, let alone marry him. People probably think I'm winning in life. But married life with Max wasn't all sunshine and roses. Hey, Max, I'd like to work. After graduating college, I married Max right away, but I found myself with too much time on my hands. I could afford to stay home, but I came from a typical middle-class family, so that kind of life just didn't sit well with me. So, I casually told Max I wanted to work.
You're married to the CEO's son of a big company. If someone like you starts working outside, people will start rumors that the company is in trouble. Have some self-awareness, will you?
He rejected my idea with a look of disdain. Before we got married, Max said he liked caring women. But he meant a woman who would cater to his needs. After marriage, he treated me like a servant and bossed me around. I wanted to work to escape that, but my wish fell on deaf ears. After the wedding, I spent my days with nothing but sighs.
You seem down.
Dave. One day, Dave returned home late after work and noticed me sulking in the corner of the living room. I couldn't help but spill everything to him.
I see. I raised him as a single dad, so maybe he became spoiled with family because I couldn't give him much attention.
Maybe. Isn't he a bit too spoiled, though? I fought, but I couldn't say that in front of Dave. I answered vaguely, and Dave smiled wryly before making this proposal.
Emily, if you're okay with it, why not work at my company?
What, really? I was overjoyed as Dave nodded with a smile. He said he'd explain the situation to Max, so I gratefully accepted his offer. After that, I began working at Dave's company, got pregnant with Lynn, and gave birth safely. I believed that having a child would bring Max back to his former, kinder self, but unfortunately, my prediction was wrong. Max continued to treat me as he always had, ordering me around. On top of that, I was constantly busy with parenting, work, and housework, but I preferred this lifestyle over doing nothing. By the way, despite being the son of a company CEO, Max hardly worked at all. He seemed content to rest on his laurels.
It's pointless to work that hard.
He'd say snidely, mocking my busy schedule. Lately, I felt like Max's attitude toward me was growing worse. My resentment continued to build. Max has been so cruel lately. The other day, this happened.
That's clearly your husband's fault.
My confidant and best friend was Susanna. We had known each other since high school, and she always listened to my complaints. We regularly met at our usual cafe that we had been frequenting since high school. Susanna was my best friend, and I cherished her deeply.
I can't believe Max treats you so poorly when you're so kind and hard-working, Emily.
Thanks, Susanna. Watching her express anger on my behalf made me chuckle. Sipping her favorite orange juice, Susanna continued.
But he has always been like that, hasn't he?
Have you met Max before, Susanna? Susanna looked briefly surprised, but quickly returned to a smile.
I saw him at your wedding, but it's strange to say I know him just from one meeting. I probably formed an image of him just from hearing your stories.
I see, Susanna. I didn't realize I complained to you so much. Apparently, I had vented to Susanna so often that she felt like she knew Max personally. I reflected on my actions. Susanna smiled wryly and shook her head.
No, it's okay, Emily. Don't worry about it. Would you like some cake? I'm in the mood for something sweet.
Sounds good. I continued to complain about Max, but Susanna listened kindly and patiently. Despite the increasing hurtful comments from Max lately, I managed to get through each day thanks to Susanna and Dave. But that daily life came to an abrupt end. Dave, why did you? One day, Dave suddenly fell ill and never returned home. I took care of him in the hospital, hoping for his recovery, but my wishes went unanswered. Though he was still energetic at first, Dave gradually weakened and then passed away.
Grandpa.
Lynn, who adored Dave, wore a sad expression. She had always accompanied me to the hospital and helped care for Dave. Meanwhile, as for his own son, Max.
Since you're visiting the hospital, I don't need to go, right?
He didn't visit Dave even once, nor did he show any sorrow when Dave passed away.
I'm not really into this stuff, so I'll leave it all to you.
He dumped all the arrangements for the funeral and paperwork on me. With help from Dave's legal advisors and employees, I managed, but I was dumbfounded by Max's selfish behavior. He did attend the funeral as Dave's only son, but he didn't pay respects afterward and continued to come home late every night.
Hey, I'm back.
That day, Max returned home late as usual, and I looked at him with exasperation. Lynn had just finished her bath and was preparing for bed. Max's face was flushed, likely from drinking somewhere.
Daddy, you smell like alcohol.
Lynn muttered with a look of dismay, much like mine. Max, it hasn't even been half a month since Dave passed away. Where do you go every single day? I finally couldn't stand it any longer and confronted Max, but he just twisted his face in annoyance.
It's my life. I can go where I want. Stop prying into my business. You don't have the right to tie me down.
But Dave just passed away.
So what? I have to stay home all the time. Being around your sad face makes me feel crazy.
His unreasonable words made me snap back without thinking. Remember when I wanted to work, you told me to act like a CEO's son's wife with awareness. How about you start acting like a CEO's son? What will people think if you keep wandering around after your father just died? Whoa. In the middle of my sentence, Max threw his bag at me in anger. Fortunately, the bag didn't hit Lynn or me and fell to the floor instead. Max glared at me with fury in his eyes.
Don't talk big to me. Next time you talk back, I won't let it slide.
With an angry look, he stormed out of the living room. Left behind were only Lynn and I, stunned.
Mom, are you okay?
Lynn, who came to her senses before me, looked at me with concern. I forced a smile and turned to her. I'm okay. I'm sorry you had to face something bad, Lynn.
It's not your fault, Mom.
My kind daughter, who always looked out for me even at times like this, I hugged her gently. Without Lynn, I might have broken down. Despite Lynn grieving over her beloved grandfather, she still managed to offer me comforting words. Marrying Max might have been a mistake, but becoming a family with Dave and Lynn was the precious treasure I gained from this marriage. A few days later, sigh. I had just about managed to get the paperwork sorted, and all that was left was to wait for the memorial mass after Dave's death. Thinking I might have some time now, I was about to contact Susanna to vent when a call from Max. Max, who had gone out again today, called me suddenly. Hello, what's up?
I need to talk. Meet me at the cafe near the station.
His imperious tone made me want to sigh, as if he had been enjoying himself all day as usual. However, thinking it would be more trouble to refuse, I headed to the designated spot. This cafe, Susanna and I often use it. The cafe, which we had been visiting since high school, might look old, but the food served is delicious, and the ambience inside is stylish and calm. It was surprising that Max, who liked flashy places, knew this cafe, but I entered nonetheless. There, I was about to learn an unbelievable truth. Excuse me, what did you just say? Max, who had been waiting at a back table, immediately confronted me as I took my seat.
That's why I said we're getting married. I want a divorce from you.
Max grinned as he thrust a divorce paper at me. I wasn't shocked because Max wanted a divorce. It was shocking because the person Max said he was going to marry was sitting next to him.
Sorry, Emily. I'm taking your husband.
Susanna said this with a sarcastic tone, intertwining her arm with Max's.
Now that Dave's gone and all the paperwork's finished, I thought it was a good opportunity to settle everything, right, Max?
Susanna smiled at Max, who nodded back with a smile. How long have you two been together? Struggling to control my trembling voice, I asked them both.
Let's see. Was it right after Lynn was born? I visited your house and met Max. He was quite frustrated because you weren't paying him any attention.
Susanna spoke with a sneering smile, making crass remarks. It was an ugly grin that I had never seen before.
You should start packing to leave. Out of pity, I'll let you stay in the house until you're ready. I'm going to Susan's place, so contact me when you're done.
There was more I wanted to ask, but they quickly left a cafe after placing the divorce papers on the table. I stared at the divorce form, which Max had already signed, and let out a small sigh. I carefully folded the divorce papers and placed them in my bag, then took out my phone to call someone. A few days later,
Are you done preparing to leave?
Max returned home for the first time in a long while. After that day, he really moved into Susanna's place and had not come back to this house even once. In the meantime, I had hurriedly finished certain preparations and contacted Max yesterday. Lynn wasn't here right now. It wouldn't be right to involve a child in the ugly disputes that were about to unfold. So, I had left her with a coworker and friend who has children. Lynn is very attached to her and gets along well with her children, so she must be having a good time right now.
This house, it's been a while since I've been here. It's always such a grand home. To think I'll be living here from now on, it's just perfect. A plain woman like you doesn't deserve a place like this.
Susanna, cheerful and uninvited, was at Max's side. I didn't call Susanna, but she followed Max. Even as she hurled insults at me, she kept a smile on her face. She seemed quite pleased that, by divorcing me, she would become the wife of the CEO. Please, take a seat. I led them to the living room, and they looked surprised.
Who is this? Don't let strangers into my house without permission.
So, you've been cheating too. Guess it's fair then, right?
A serious-looking man in a suit was sitting in the living room. He didn't even flinch at their disrespectful words. Don't be rude. This man was someone I had invited, certainly not an affair partner. Ignoring their petty provocations, I took my seat.
So, are you ready to get divorced?
Yes, I have the divorce papers right here. I presented the completed divorce papers, and they both smirked.
At least you're prepared. Do you understand what's going to happen to you now? You'll no longer be a CEO's wife. You'll lose everything, such as money and a place to live. What awaits you is a bleak future after Max has discarded you.
Susanna gloated triumphantly, and I calmly replied, Susanna, let me ask you one thing. Why did you have an affair with Max?
Well, isn't it obvious? Max is the heir to a large corporation. If I marry him, I'll never have to worry about money.
Hearing this, I understood internally. She had always been fond of money. Even spending her student days engrossed in part-time jobs, letting her grades slip. Even as an adult, I thought her greedy for money, but since Susanna was my friend, I never reproached her. Looking back, perhaps if I had cautioned her then, things might not have turned out this way. But it was all too late now. Hearing her words, Max shrugged exaggeratedly and wrapped an arm around her waist.
Hey, you're just after my money.
Oh, I do love you, of course, just as much as I love your money.
With a raucous laugh, Susanna turned back to me. Then, as if to prove her point, she pulled out a wad of cash from her bag and tossed it in front of me with a thud.
That next CO is mine. Here, take this $1,000 for your divorce. You'll be penniless afterward, so consider this a special gift.
How crude these people are. I grimaced at their despicable behavior and thought of a good comeback. Just then, the man in the suit sitting next to me shook his shoulders. Moments later, he clutched his belly and burst into laughter.
What the hell?
Max let out a surprised gasp. Beside him, Susanna had a puzzled expression.
Sorry, my apologies. You just seem to have no grasp of your own situation, so I couldn't help myself.
Wiping away tears, the man took out a business card holder. He handed them each a card and introduced himself.
Nice to meet you both. I'm John, an attorney who worked with the late CEO Dave.
Attorney.
Susanna was bewildered. Max looked puzzled, as if he hadn't expected attorney to be in attendance. Then John dropped a bombshell that made them nearly jump out of their seats.
So, you're Susanna, Max's mistress. You think he'll become the CEO's wife, but that's a huge misunderstanding. The heir is Emily, and Max is unemployed.
John's words left both of them gaping in shock. Watching their faces, I remembered something. When Dave was still conscious in the hospital, he suddenly told me this.
Emily, when I pass away, divorce him. Max is cheating on you.
Dave's words surprised me, but at the same time, I wasn't too shocked. A few years ago, I found a woman's accessory in Max's bag, along with a hotel receipt, so I knew he was cheating. I briefly considered divorce, but I couldn't entrust Dave to Max, who was always fooling around. Besides, if I divorced Max, I'd get custody, and Dave and Lynn would be separated. Dave and Lynn were so close that I sometimes got jealous. I didn't want to break them up, so I turned a blind eye to Max's infidelity. At the time, I had no idea that Susanna was the other woman, nor did Dave seem to know the details. When I told Dave about it, he looked surprised for a moment and let out a deep sigh.
I can't believe my actions have forced you into hardship, Emily.
That's not it. Sure, it's partly for our daughter, but I didn't want to be separated from you either. I love you just as much as Lynn does. Dave looked like he was about to cry, but he smiled at my words. Then, with a determined expression, he said something even more surprising.
If you're okay with it, I'll leave you everything.
What?
I don't want my inheritance going to Max.
Dave had given up on Max long ago, just as I had. No way, Dave, I don't need your inheritance. Just stay healthy for as long as you can. I said that, but it seemed like Dave had already prepared everything. After he passed away, I contacted John to handle the paperwork, and he told me that Dave had left a will leaving everything to me.
So, all of Dave's estate, including the company, will belong to Emily.
John placed Dave's will in front of them. Just in case, he gave them a copy. It didn't take long for the just in case to happen.
I'll never accept this.
Max shouted and tore the will in half. Seeing the will split in two, I secretly sighed with relief that we'd made copies.
You mean you're going to be the CEO? Next CEO is me. You're just a housewife. Sure, you worked at my dad's company, but just as a temp. What do you know about running it?
Could he really not know this? I almost said it aloud. Instead, I kept my cool and told Max something he didn't know. I'm just a temp worker. That's not true. I'm the head of the secretary department. After marrying Dave, I started working at his company. At first, I was just a temp like Max said, but I discovered that I enjoyed working, so I worked hard at Dave's company and gained experience. My efforts were recognized, and I was promoted to a permanent position. After becoming a full-time employee, I climbed the corporate ladder steadily, eventually reaching the head of the secretary department. Our department's job is to support the busy CEO. I've been observing the CEO's work up close for years. Dave had intended to make me his successor for a while, so he secretly entrusted me with presidential duties to help me gain experience. Before he passed away, Dave even spoke with the executives. The next CEO isn't going to be you, Max, someone who spent all his time playing around and made no effort. It's going to be me, who's been working hard all this time. John nodded at my words.
The formal procedures have already been completed. You and Susanna are the only ones who believe that Max will be the next CEO.
The life seemed to drain from Max's face. His gaze wandered nervously until it landed on the torn will on the table, where he fixated on one sentence. It was Dave's words of rejection for his son.
I won't leave any inheritance to my only blood relative, Max.
Cutting off his son must have been tough. But Max had lived selfishly enough to push his own father to this. This outcome was Max's own doing. I returned the $1,000 that had been thrown at me earlier to the two of them, now as pale as ghosts. From now on, things will be hard without money, right? Max won't be the next CEO. I'll divorce him, and you'll be thrown out of this house, losing everything. So here, take this back. Consider it a little help with your living expenses. Susanna's face flushed bright red with rage at my words, and she shouted,
You've got to be kidding. I refuse to accept this.
She violently slapped my hand when I tried to return the $1,000. Then, her face contorted with anger, she glared at John and approached him threateningly.
Max is his only blood relative. It's only natural that Max should inherit the company. It's unforgivable that she would inherit everything.
Susanna's face was beet red with fury. John looked at her with an exasperated expression.
You say you won't accept it, but you two are the only ones who haven't. Legally, all procedures have been completed, and the company's board unanimously agrees that Emily should be the next CEO. I also personally believe it's better for Emily to lead.
John glanced at Max.
I'm the company's attorney, but Max, have you ever met with me once? You haven't, right? You even mistook me for Emily's lover.
He let out a deep sigh.
If you had taken your job as the next CEO seriously, you would have met with me many times. It's absurd that someone who hasn't trained as a CEO should suddenly inherit the role. If that were to happen, the company left by Dave would crumble. A major task like running a company is impossible for someone incompetent. I'm not a business owner, but I know that much.
I was a little surprised by John's candid words. When I glanced at him, I saw a hint of anger on his face. John had been indebted to Dave for a long time. When John was just starting his law firm and struggling for work, Dave had given him business, helping him stay afloat. Afterward, Dave appointed him as the company's attorney, and John often said he could never repay Dave. John seemed angry at Max for ignoring Dave all this time. Max sat slumped in his chair, staring at the floor. His face ghostly white.
Damn it.
Susanna couldn't seem to accept it, lunging at John. I grabbed her hand and stopped her.
Let me go. You loser who couldn't even discipline your husband. Don't touch me.
I didn't respond to her vile words, calmly stating the facts. If you harm John, the company staff waiting outside will rush in.
Oh no. Why are they here?
The company's executives, concerned about potential danger, had suggested having a third party present at this meeting. We had called upon the staff who were skilled in martial arts. After the two entered the house, we had them secretly wait outside. When I explained this to Susanna, she paled and quietly sat down. It seemed she had realized she couldn't win. I decided to deliver the final blow to the now defeated pair. I'm going to demand compensation from both of you. John and I have already discussed this. At the mention of claiming damages, the two of them quickly looked up, their shoulders drooping. Then, Susanna tried to cling to me.
I'm so sorry. Just forgive me for this, please. I truly regret it. I'll apologize as much as it takes to satisfy you. You'll forgive me, right? Because we're best friends.
I brushed off Susanna's reaching hands with a cold response. No, we're done. I absolutely refuse to be friends with someone who would steal another person's husband for money. Don't ever pretend to be my friend again. It's disgusting. As Susanna's face fell into despair, Max kneeled down before me. Then he made a ridiculously audacious statement that left me flabbergasted.
I'm sorry for everything. Let's start over.
Jesus Christ.
Divorce would be terrible for Lynn, right?
Hearing Max use our daughter as an excuse, my anger surged. How selfish could he be? Lynn asks me almost every day when we'll divorce.
What?
She's 8 years old, Max. She's not a little kid who doesn't understand anything. She's long since lost any affection for you, after how you've disregarded Dave and me. Yes, just like Dave and me, Lynn had already lost familial love for the selfish Max. She had repeatedly told me how she wanted me to divorce and be happy. It took a while, but I was finally going to fulfill Lynn's wish. You no longer have a family. Everyone who was your family has abandoned you. I'm divorcing you, so live well with Susanna. That was your wish, right? At those words, Max collapsed on the floor in despair. Susanna also sat down abruptly, covering her face with her hands and sobbing softly. Later, when I tried to kick them out, they were too busy despairing and crying to leave. So, I asked the company staff waiting outside for help, and they managed to get them out. This house, too, was left to me by Dave. The ownership is already in my name, and it's no longer theirs. I plan to continue living here, cherishing the memories of Dave and with my beloved daughter. Thanks to John, we were able to complete all the procedures for the claim for damages smoothly. Max had to sell his belongings and still had to borrow from a loan shark to cover the rest. I wonder what kind of shady lenders would loan to someone like Max, but as long as he pays the damages, it doesn't matter to me. Susanna exhausted her savings to pay the damages and tried to borrow from friends when she fell short. However, once her friends found out about her affair, they all cut ties with her. Among them were friends Susanna and I had in common. They were all disgusted with Susanna and worried about me. According to what I heard from these friends, Max, with nowhere else to go and no money, moved in with Susanna. But Susanna blamed Max for her predicament. And they had a huge fight, leading to the neighbors calling the police. Eventually, Susanna kicked Max out, and I don't know where he is now. Wherever he is, it doesn't concern me. Susanna, struggling to pay back the damages, turned to the same shady loan sharks as Max. Her future looks as miserable as Max's. Meanwhile, I've taken over as the CEO at the company Dave left me, and it's keeping me very busy. Even though Dave trained me, being CEO is a challenging job. I'm managing with the support of the employees. What soothes my hectic days is my precious daughter.
Mom, welcome back. You must be tired from work.
I'm home, Lynn. You must be hungry, right? I'll make your favorite beef stew today.
Yay! I love it, Mom.
Just seeing Lynn's smile makes all the fatigue vanish. Though the days ahead may be tough, with Lynn by my side, I'm sure I'll be fine. And I know Dave is watching over us from heaven. As long as he can rest easy up there, I'll do everything I can down here.